Pen Made Mightier without wood.
Welcome back to Pen Made Mightier. I'm Gideon Ray, and this is our third part in the Steven Universe series. This week, we're going to be talking about the family bonds that are present in Steven Universe you don't really get to see in most other shows. Either you've got a nuclear family, and it's the core of all of the drama, sitcoms do this crap all the time, or the family is completely non-existent, like 9 out of 10 anime series that I've seen. But Steven Universe manages to strike a wonderful balance between those, where you get to see the importance of family, both for Steven and for all of the other characters, without it being boring or just blasé. Today we're going to be talking about Diana Baumrinn's 3 parenting styles theory. A 4th was added soon after. We'll talk about that too. But what's delightful about Steven Universe is that all of the parenting styles, for the most part, are shown as completely valid, and that they raise really good kids. I love seeing that. Type 1 is authoritarian. These are the parents, we all knew when we were kids, that made 1,001 rules for our friends that they had to follow or else. These are the kind of parents that, more than anything, discipline their children and build them into something strong, like the Marhesh ones. Connie's parents build her up and train her to do a lot of wonderful things, but she has to follow a bunch of very stringent rules or be punished for failing to do so. That's all fine and well. But this style of parenting is not without its blemishes. Sure, the kids become really good at following rules, but they usually have some self-esteem problems, and they can become aggressive if they're pushed like this for too long. Connie is definitely built into a more powerful person for all the efforts that her parents do in teaching her things like violin and tennis, but truth be told, I have to wonder if she's not close enough to the point of snapping. You can definitely see this in the fact that Connie has to constantly phone home to keep her mom informed and things, and when her eyesight is cured in Indirect Kiss, she even is afraid to go home without glasses on. So she just pops out her lenses and wears the empty frames. That's an authoritarian parent if I've ever seen one. Next are authoritative parents. These are kind of middle ground parents. They have a lot of rules that they expect their kids to follow, but instead of being harsh and really dumping on them, they give them treats and rewards for following the rules, and if they fail to follow the rules, there's a punishment. But it's a middle ground. Rules with exceptions is the key of the authoritative parent. Kids raised this way tend to be very good at evaluating risks, and they are raised with a sense of purpose and knowing that they're supported but not restricted. That's why it's one of the most recommended parenting styles, but like with all people, no approach fits all. The Crystal Gems and Greg Universe both fit this pretty well. They have rules that they expect Steven to follow. If he fails to follow them, he'll lose his TV privileges for 1,000 years. If he does follow them, Garnet brings him gifts, or they give him new responsibilities, and sometimes when he breaks the rules, that's just okay, as long as he did so safely. Because, well, authoritative parents set rules, and they allow for exceptions. Somewhere in between the previous 2 that I was talking about, we have Kofi. Kofi is the owner of Fish Stew Pizza, and he commands a lot of things out of his daughters, but he's often vetoed by his daughters, and by his mother. It's also worth note that Kofi appears to be a single parent. He lives with his mother, and he's got his daughters, but there doesn't appear to be a wife in the picture. Maybe she's just left the family, it could be that she passed away, or it could be that she's just really working somewhere far away. But either way, Kofi acts as a single parent, seems to be raising a pair of lovely daughters, and managing a pretty successful business, at least for beach sitting. The third type is permissive. These are the parents, and we all had friends like this too, whose parents set no rules. They were just uncomfortable setting rules for their parents for fear of limiting their creativity. This is Vidalia, who has only appeared in 2 episodes, but we've seen a lot of evidence of her parenting style and her kids' onion and sour cream, who just go with the flow and kind of do what they want, sometimes for no reason at all. I think Steven said it best when he said,
"Why do you hate food?"
Yeah, these are the parents who say, kids will be kids. And they succeed in the fact that they encourage a lot of creativity, and they encourage their kids to ask a lot of questions about rules, but they really fail to weed out bad behavior. This has never been more present in a show than with Onion. But all that to say, Onion and Sour Cream don't actually seem like bad kids. Onion is just going through growing pains and should be reined in a bit, but well, Sour Cream grew out of it. Maybe Onion will too. The last type of parenting is sort of a fourth addendum. Uninvolved parents. These are the parents who just neglect their kids and fail to give them the kind of upbringing they deserve. You usually get a lot of showing out, bad behavior, anything they can to get their parents' attention. I think this is very well represented with Mayor Dewey and his son, because he'll do anything he feels like, and it usually kind of teeters on the edge of bad behavior. Sometimes outright bad behavior, like in Guitar Dad. But I think most of what he does stems from the fact that he just wants his dad to love him. He brings it up a lot. We may not know what the rest of Mayor Dewey's home life is like. We may see it eventually, but it's easy to say that he probably doesn't have a wife, or if he does, he doesn't treat her very well, because he refers to Pearl as the hot one and flirts with her a lot in the show, which would definitely be strange if we find out there's a Mrs. Dewey. But again, not a poor reflection of reality. Mayor Dewey even seems to have a problem with better father-son relationships, like the one we see with Steven and his dad Greg. When he finds them playing, he's like, "I didn't pay for you to have a good time." He seems to almost disdain the fact that there are people out there with a better father-son relationship than he has with his son. It could be some really deep-seated stuff. I want to touch on Greg a little bit more than I've done so far, in the fact that he is a parent removed from his relationship, but he refuses to go farther than he has to. He really wants to be a part of Steven's life. It's easy to pick on Greg and think of him as kind of a deadbeat dad, but there's way too much evidence to the contrary to think that way about Greg Universe. We know that he has property. He owns a barn. We see it in Space Race, and it would certainly make a better home than the one he's living in, his van down by the car wash. He even says that if they can find the deed to the mansion that his aunt and uncle left him, that he can move in there. But instead, again, he's living in a van. You can say that's because Greg sucks. It's because he doesn't have any money. But Steven has a home that didn't exist in pre-Greg Universe times that we've seen in flashbacks. And if you've seen some of the leaked footage from Comic-Con, we know that Greg is pretty much the impetus of it being built. Beyond that, the Gems don't have jobs, although Pearl does say she used some money to pay for the Cookie Cats in the first episode. Beyond that, we have to assume that Greg is the one providing the money for all the stuff that Steven needs. Clothes, food, electricity, all the stuff that Steven takes for granted, because where would the Gems be getting it? They don't even really understand what pizza is. Except for Amethyst. I think she knows what pizza is. All this points to the fact that Greg could have a home to himself. He could be living in the barn or a mansion, but he chooses to live in the van because it's close to Steven. And he chooses to live in the van and do without so that his son can have everything he wants him to have. Greg is a fantastic parent, and I love him. And I'm not going to lie, he's my favorite character, so I'm probably doting on him a bit heavy, but take that with a grain of salt and give Greg Universe a real look, because he deserves it. It's also so nice to see a show that will do more than just the nuclear family. Sure, we do have a nuclear family of the Maheshwans. We've got a single parent with Kofi and his clan. We've got a very strange familial relationship with Steven, having 3 mothers. He's also kind of his own mom. And then we've got his father, Greg, who is removed from the situation, almost like a divorced parent. But we also know that his mom passed away, and the show deals with that as a core focus of the show without bumming anybody out, because they show the beauty behind it, and we see the emotional consequences of Rose not being there pretty much in every episode. And that's fantastic, because there's a lot of kids out there living in single-parent homes or non-traditional homes, and no shows ever represent them. Steven Universe decided to handle that with gusto. We even have a parent who's working far from home with Vidalia and Yellowtail, and they deal with the fact that the Maheshwans move around a lot because of Mr. Maheshwan's job. That's more that we don't see in most traditional shows. More styles of parenting, more styles of family, a greater diversity of cast and clan than most shows ever attempt in a kids show that is 11 minutes long and aired in Cartoon Network primetime. It's one of the thousands of reasons that I love Steven Universe, and you should love it too. Especially for it doing stuff like this, when most shows are afraid to even attempt it. Next week on Pen Made Mightier, we're going to talk about some of the lore and world building that Rebecca Sugar has worked into Steven Universe. So, if you want to stay up to date with my videos, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, follow us on Facebook and Twitter, talk with us there. I'd really love to get in touch if you think you've got an episode idea worth exploring. Thanks for sticking with me. I'll see you guys next week. Bye.